Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to your fave film critic, the podcast hosted by me, created by me, starring me, produced by me, Dom Griffin, your favorite film critic. This is episode 17? Episode 17, yeah. And we have some stuff to talk about, as we do every week, I would hope, right? I have a couple of news items I want to talk about. One that's like kind of a brief thing, and one that's like, I don't know, might go long. And then I'll talk about what I watched this week, which is, there's a few things I watched this week that like I'm going to review, and I'm not quite sure when those reviews will come out. So like, I'm probably not going to talk about those movies as much. But I can't like, I mean, like if you follow me, if you see my letterbox, you'll see that I saw them. So it's like weird to not bring them up. And then we have like one question at the end. So should be a good time. Let's just get into it, right? So the news. The first news item is earlier this week, or like a few days ago, Rolling Stone reported that Casey Bloys, an executive at HBO, was pressuring his employees to create trolling Twitter accounts to respond to negative criticism from TV critics on Twitter, on X/Twitter. And this is like one of those things that comes out like when there's like a lawsuit, like someone is suing HBO for like wrongful termination from The Idol, I believe. So like it's like a lawsuit that Able Test is a part of as well. But anytime there's like a big lawsuit in like in the entertainment world, a bunch of stuff comes out in Discovery that ends up leaking out and ends up becoming like their own funny news items. And I'll link it in the show notes, but like this article had me rolling because it's not just that he wanted to like combat online criticism or have there be people who were like leading the good fight to defend these shows from the critics or something. Like that would also have been bad, but I would have been like, I can kind of get it. I mean, like you put out a piece of work that you're proud of or you think is good or you think needs to connect with people. And maybe you don't like seeing some of the like shitty things that sometimes critics say like on Twitter. You know, not all critics are like good critics. Not all critics are like fair critics. And sometimes critics just say fucked up stuff to get likes and retweets like everybody else does, you know? So maybe you want to like fight back against that kind of lazy, self-serving criticism, but you don't want to, you know, attach your at to it. You don't want to be like an executive being like, hey, fucking Alan Sepinwall, fuck you. You know, it's bad. So I'm like, I guess I could sort of get it if like he himself just had a burner and he just indiscriminately just tweeted at people like, go fuck yourselves if they said bad things about his shows. I'd be like, yeah, whatever. I mean, like everyone's entitled to a burner, right? But then it's like he was making other people do it for him and he was giving them like specific directions on like how he wanted them to respond. And I feel like not enough is being said about how well he seems to understand how like Twitter discourse goes. So like there was a criticism of the show The Nevers, the Joss Whedon show that like he got fired off of for being Joss Whedon. I made a video about it. I'll try to remember to link it or whatever. Not a very good show. But there was a criticism about how the show feels like there was a show that got made and it had like 20% of it just like indiscriminately cut out, which is not wrong. And Bloys had someone, I don't even know if I'm saying his name right, but whatever, had someone tweet at that critic basically saying, like, oh, look at a shocker, a couple of white male critics and you're not understanding the show for women. And it was just like, oh my God, like I see really ridiculous at replies to critics' tweets all the time. And most of the time you think, oh, well, this is just, there are people that have these thoughts. There are people that think these dumb things. What are you going to do, right? But the idea to me now is like, so like what if every time I've seen a ridiculous response like that, it's actually been like an intern who has been instructed to weaponize, you know, progressive language against these, you know what I mean? Like it's so cynical. And it's going to kind of come back up in the next discussion we have about the news, but like the way that corporations have learned to like insidiously use progressive language and like, you know, so-called like woke talking points and stuff as like a cudgel to like shape their own narratives, like for their own like marketing reasons, is like so grotesque. It is like so fucked up. And I just, something about seeing these just really had me, it cracked me up because it's funny. Like some of the tweets are funny. And then like the kind of fake accounts, it would be like a woman who like her bio would say she was like a florist or something, you know, like just make them regular people or whatever. And I think that's just, the entire apparatus is funny. And I saw people like calling this dude out, and I guess he came out and had like an apology or whatever, and he was just like, oh, you know, this is ill-conceived. But like I sort of wonder, I kind of doubt really that he's the only one that does this. Like there's got to be tons of other people that do the exact same thing, but they're not currently in a legal battle where this stuff would come out in like a discovery. So I just think it's, I don't know, it's really funny to me. And it also just kind of, it reinforces like my own personal feeling about how a lot of Twitter discourse about movies and television is just like so poisoned. And because a lot of times people are just like treating their fandom, whatever thing they like versus whatever thing they don't like, is like team sports, and they don't mind playing dirty to win. You know what I mean? It has nothing to do with like an exchange of intellectual, you know, opinions and stuff. It really just kind of boils down to like, I like this thing. If you don't like this thing, then you're a fucking this. You're a racist. You're sexist. You're just dumb. You're whatever. Everyone has their different ways to spin it, and it's just unfortunate, but it's also funny. I'm sorry. It's like it's genuinely very funny. It gave me some much needed laughs this week. I don't know what's going to happen with that guy, or the lawsuit or anything. I wasn't actually that interested in reading more about that part of it, but this is funny. And like I feel like every TV critic now, every time they get a response, they're going to be like, oh, is this one of the fucking showrunners? Who is this? You know, I don't think this is really Cindy from Indiana. So I don't know. That whole thing is very funny. But the thing I want to talk about, that I'm like really, really want to talk about, is Variety put out this article about the MCU and like how fucked everything is over there. And yesterday, I'll talk about this more later, but yesterday I was at a press screening in Georgetown to see Michael Mann's Ferrari, which, you know, I'll talk about a little bit later. And I didn't get there like super early, but the screening started kind of late, which I feel like every time I've gone to Georgetown for a morning screening, it always starts like 20 to 30 minutes late, and there's never an explanation. I don't know what the fuck they're doing over there. But we were in the Dolby House, which is, anyway, I was in there and I had like time to kill. And right when I sat down in my seat, I was checking my phone and I happened to see this article. So like, I'll link in the show notes. If you are on the internet and you're the kind of person who listens to my podcast, you've probably seen this article already, or you've definitely seen like pieces of it reported elsewhere, like getting aggregated and stuff. But it's like the cover story for like the print issue of Variety, I think. And it's just, I don't know if you can call it an expose, maybe that's a bit much, but it's just a laundry list of issues that Marvel Entertainment is having at the moment. And every bit of it is just like, holy shit. Like, it's a lot of stuff that I guess we've sort of heard pieces of before a little bit, maybe. Like, they talked about how expensive She-Hulk was, and how the original plan for She-Hulk was that she wasn't actually going to turn into She-Hulk until like the 8th episode. It was going to be like one episode of her being She-Hulk. And then they realized that sucked. And then they kind of had to write around it. And then that's why the special effects on the show look the way they do, because they were so rushed and people were overworked to make those deadlines. But the show was like $22 or $25 million an episode, which is like more than the final season episodes of Game of Thrones, which is fucking insane if you've seen She-Hulk. Like, it looks like dog shit. It's a fucking horrendous looking show. And like, you know, wasn't particularly successful. I mean, as much as you can figure out what the metric even is for the success of a streaming show, right? Like, it didn't make much of a dent in the culture or anything. Then they also talked a lot about Blade, and how Mahershala Ali, fresh off of his second fucking Oscar, the first thing he did with his Oscar clout was go to Marvel and be like, I want to be Blade. And they're like, fuck yeah, we'll bring him out at this press conference thing, and he's got the hat on, he's gonna be Blade. And then how that movie has been through so many failed script stages, like so many writers have come on and off of it, and like it's all been bad. I had already heard stuff before about how like at one point it was gonna be like a period piece. At one point it was gonna be very much more like a sort of like a prestige picture about like racism and the history of America and shit. It was like all this stuff that was like, dude, it's Blade. It's just a cool black guy fucking killing vampires. Not to say that you can't have social commentary in it, but like, you guys are really overthinking this. And seeing just how much the article goes into like how fucked it was is like very embarrassing. And I guess the current thing is they're bringing in Michael Green, who was a writer on Heroes, and then he helped write Logan and Blade Runner 2049, and he's written all the new Poirot movies for Branagh. He's like fine, I guess, whatever. I don't know that he's gonna make it much better, but well, he did Logan with like 3 other people, but like, so yeah, he can do this. I am certain that we're never gonna get that Blade movie. I just do not see Mahershala Ali sticking it out after the strike is over. Like, and if he does, and a movie does come out, there is next to no chance it's gonna be any good. It's the entire thing is just really laughable to me. But there was also one of the things that stuck out to me was they talk about the Marvels and how, you know, it's tracking very poorly. Pre-sales are like down. I know my theater is opening it. We've sold like no tickets. They've been on sale for weeks. We've sold like none. Not that that's indicative of the whole nation, but it is not a good thing. And you know, one of the reasons I think that the Marvels is tracking as poorly is it's very simple. Every Marvel movie used to be like you'd have to have seen maybe 1 or 2 other movies to kind of get it. Like you'd have to have seen the last one, or if it's a new character, you don't have to really see anything. You'll be able to figure it out. But the Marvels is really kind of asking you to have seen all of Secret Invasion, a show that nobody watched or liked, all of Miss Marvel, which I've heard is actually a pretty fun show. I just never got around to it, but also was like one of the least watched shows they had. And everything about it just seems like it's not gonna be good. And it's a major bummer for like Nia DaCosta, who's the director. It's the first Black woman to ever direct a Marvel movie. And she'd already in interviews been saying some stuff about the production that made it sound like really not good. Like I think she talked about like going home and crying every day. And then she talked about like how, you know, even though she's director, she's not like really the director, and just all sorts of stuff that made it sound like she was already just like divorcing herself from this project. What I did not know until I read this Variety article is that the movie had to have a lot of reshoots, which I mean, I think almost every Marvel movie does, but that during post-production, she just went to the UK to start working on her next movie. And like, she just, post-production on a movie is like pretty important, but post-production on a Marvel movie where they do a lot of stuff in like that last part of the process is like pretty important. And she just dipped. And I don't think that's happened before. And if it has happened before, it's never been like publicized to this degree. So the director just throwing their hands up and saying, fuck it. Not a good sign. Not a good sign at all. And, you know, the thing is, the article makes it very clear that the issues are primarily that they just overexpanded. You know what I mean? Like, they were pressured into having all the shows for Disney Plus to help make Disney Plus more important for the stockholders and shit. We're seeing how every studio having their own streamer is really, you know, like not good, and has issues. But we're seeing kind of that, I don't know. We're seeing that like making a streaming platform your thing and building it around trying to make that larger, and like the only way you're really making money off of it is that it's helping the stockholders and the shareholders, because like the image of having a bunch more subscribers will help like raise things or whatever. Like it helps make it look good. Like that bubble's like bursting everywhere. So Disney essentially pressured them into doing this, essentially pressured them into having all these shows so that there'd be constant Marvel content, like no matter what. And, you know, it's not working. I think that by expanding as hard as they have to where there really is like a show every other month or whatever, and like, there's been so much content, is that there's not the same level of quality control, which is not to say that before that the quality control was great, but it was like better. And the article seems to posit that like so much of Feige's influence is that he's very Feige. I never say his name right, mostly because I don't respect him. But his primary like special sauce in the MCU is that he kind of comes in near the end and like, you know, rejigger stuff, and they do reshoots and they swap out the blue screen backgrounds for whatever. That's like his thing that he I guess does. And if there's all these things being shot all at the same time, he's not as involved in as many of them, which means, and also, you know, they famously were not using showrunners for these shows. It's just a bunch of people all independently working on stuff. And like, that's not how this brand was born, how it grew. you know? So it's definitely, I feel like it's getting harder for people to deny what's going on and where things are. That does not mean that nobody's denying it. Obviously, I actually, for the first, like, I read this article while I was sitting waiting to watch Ferrari, and it was just every new paragraph was just funnier and funnier and funnier. And I feel like it's definitely like a sort of a chickens coming home to roost situation, because, like, you know, they've been so grossly exploitative of VFX artists and stuff. Like, it's, you know, the jig is up, you know what I mean? They can't keep going on this way. And it was funny. I ran into my friend Julian, who's at the screening, and I told him about the article, and he was like, I can't wait to read this. And like, it's not like a mean-spirited, we're all glad that this is failing type thing. I don't think it's that. It's more just like, people have been trying to point out that, like, this is not sustainable for a while, that this is not working, that these things are going to stop connecting, you know, ultimately, as much as a brand can be very powerful, as much as a series or a franchise can be powerful, at the end of the day, quality does win out. People want to see good things. And if you have enough bad things, you can't come out and go, there's another thing. They're going to be like, yeah, but your last thing sucked. And the thing before that sucked. And the thing before that sucked. You know, it doesn't work. So I mostly saw a lot of stuff on Twitter that was just people isolating each different, you know, item from the article and then having whole conversations about each of those pieces, because there's so many of them. There's so many of them. You have to read the whole article. And there would be, you know, some of it's just kind of people being mean-spirited. Some of it's people, you know, retweeting it with gifs of Martin Scorsese and stuff, whatever. I get it. I feel it. But I did see one, I only saw one dissenting opinion. And after I read this whole thread, I was like, I have to get off Twitter in case I see more. I just told the algorithm I want to see this bullshit, and I don't. And it was, someone had taken, there's two pieces of art connected to the article. The cover of the print issue of Variety is like an illustration, and it shows the Marvel characters, like some of the recent Marvel characters standing around. It's like they're like all glum and shit. It's like, oh, everything's fucked. And there's like an article that was used for the header of the digital version of the article. I'm sorry, an image used for the header of the digital version of the article. And that image is like a sort of a three-dimensional, or like a three-dimensional, like a line chart, like to the side, like cheated to the side, kind of. So like you're looking at it almost like the you know what I'm saying? And it's the characters like on the different peaks and valleys. And it's just like a piece of art. It's just like, that's designed to like make the article clickable or whatever, you know? And people were like picking apart the art, because on X/Twitter recently, they made it so that anytime there was like a preview, you know, like the preview for if you add a link to a tweet, it no longer shows headlines. It just shows whatever the header image is for the article. So it'll have like the thing saying that like Variety.com, and there'll be this image, and then you have to click on it to see what the fuck the headline is. And I don't know why Musk did that or what the idea behind it was, honestly, if it was good or bad, but it's stupid. And that now when you look at articles, you're just like, I don't know what this is. I don't really open as many links on Twitter as I used to for this reason. But anyway, and we already know that people don't read the articles, right? I think maybe the idea was people sometimes will just see a headline and argue about the headline. If we take the headline away, they'll have to click through and argue about the article itself. But no, these people did not click through the article, and they were just fucking dissecting this piece of art that I don't think the art direction for this thing was like, make it exactly like this, get these specific ideas across. I think it was just like, hey, we just want to show the Marvel's in turmoil, so just draw a bunch of Marvel people on a graph that's largely going down, because that's what's happening right now. But people were like, oh no, they're trying to you know, blame the diversity for why Marvel is failing. They're trying to blame it on you know, like, you know, Shang-Chi and the Eternals and all this different stuff. And I was like, that's not at all what happens in the article. And then someone else was like, and look, they're putting like Nick Fury, a black character, on part of the downslope, like it's his fault, different stuff. And like, you notice this article doesn't even talk about Black Panther, because Black Panther would show that they're not trending downwards, because Black Panther made a lot of money. And it's like, it's just this whole conversation of people just in fucking denial. Like, yeah, Black Panther 2 still made money, but it did make significantly less money than the first film. It also was definitely killed, you know, by Chadwick Boseman's death in a lot of ways. And again, a big thing I saw someone else point out, like a different tweet when they weren't defending it, was like, the one thing people aren't talking about enough is that after Black Panther, it didn't matter so much that like Downey Jr. was leaving, or Chris Evans was leaving, or ScarJo was leaving, because like they were gonna make their new big three being like Captain Marvel, Doctor Strange, and Black Panther. And like Benedict Cumberbatch Doctor Strange is like kind of connecting with people, I guess, but like I feel like Brie Larson's Captain Marvel is like very hit or miss for a lot of people, and maybe a lot of that's just like the sexism, but you know, some of that also is just like she's not a very compelling baby face. She doesn't really connect with audiences. But everybody liked T'Challa. Everybody loved Chadwick Boseman. Everybody loved Black Panther. Black Panther would have continued to be like the face of this whole new phase. Like if T'Challa was alive, he would be the face of all this shit. We'd see Chadwick Boseman promoting all this stuff, even the movies he's not in probably. Without him, there's a huge lack of other people who are big enough deals to carry this shit. And Tom Holland is like famous enough and people like his Spider-Man a lot, but he does not seem to be interested in this shit that much more. I think he signed up for another movie just for the money. I don't think he wants to do it. He seems a lot happier just like following Zendaya around and like taking selfies for her and stuff. Like that's where he's at, and I respect it. So it was just so sad seeing these people try to like defend Marvel and kind of make it seem like, oh, these people are just, here's the thing, in comics, like in Marvel as a publisher, they regularly blame bad sales on any time they do something woke. You know, I don't think the go woke, go broke aphorism or whatever comes from anywhere more honest than comics. I feel like comics is where people really are like, no, it's true. When you if you make a character black or gay or a woman or whatever, sales will plummet, but it's not because people specifically do not want to see those characters be diverse. It's that everyone knows it's not gonna stick. So even people who would normally be interested in reading a story about Black Captain America, they know that within 18 months at the most, they're going to go back to having a white Captain America. So there's no reason to invest in it. In comics, them changing these people, it is pointless, because like they're just going to go back to status quo at some point. That's why those things always drop off in sales, because no one sees any point in even trying to, God forbid you actually pick it up and like it, it's not going to last. So why do that to yourself, right? But with the MCU, I don't think that them changing these characters or having a Black Captain America or focusing on women and diversity, that's not the issue. It's that the movies got less good. The quality genuinely got less good, and it's all over the place, and there's not as much of like a roadmap. And I'm really kind of bearing lead here. One of the big reasons why they're talking about how fucked they are is the Kang stuff. You know, Jonathan Majors has been implicated in like this abuse case and stuff. His lawyers did not get the case dismissed, so it's definitely going to move forward to trial. And additionally, there's like another case or like another incident that happened in England with the same woman, the same victim. And that happened while he was shooting Loki season 2, which is like out and airing now. So it's like, this isn't a thing where Marvel can just like distance themselves from it or play the waiting game, and they don't know what to like do about it. Like it said that one of the things they're talking about doing is pivoting away from Kang entirely, and then trying to like fast track Doctor Doom to be the villain of the two big Avengers movies, which I don't know how they'd even do that. I mean, one of the things is like they could actually technically do whatever the fuck they want, right? Like they could completely recast him, because they've established that there's a bunch of different versions of Kang. They don't all have to look like Jonathan Majors. You can say fucking anybody else do it. Who cares? It's not real. And then the other thing is like, you could just completely pivot away from all this stuff and call it something else, and it doesn't matter. Those movies you announced don't exist. They're probably not even done being written. Like, just do whatever else you want. But one of the saddest things in the article, I almost forgot to mention, is that they talked about bringing back the original Avengers cast to do another Avengers movie, all of them back together, like bringing Black Widow back from the dead, bringing Iron Man back from the dead, getting Chris Evans some money to come back. And even if they don't do that, which they probably won't, I don't know, the fact that they talked about it, they're fucked. They are cooked. If things are bad enough backstage that they got to the point where they were like, what if we just brought Robert Downey Jr. back? Robert Downey Jr., who got to be in his first real movie in years and is probably going to get an Oscar this year for Oppenheimer. Yeah, I'm sure he's going to want to fucking put the suit back on. I mean, he might just like money that much. I don't know. But I imagine he's been craving some credibility. I don't think he's going to jump back. But the idea that they went to that well, even as like an idea, even just like, let's just talk it out. Let's just game it out. no, you guys are fucked. I'm sorry. That is like not good. If that's where they got, that is not good. So I don't know what's going to happen with these. I mean, I think I see the Marvels next week. I'm curious about it. I mean, I'm not looking forward to it, but I like Nia DaCosta, and there's some parts of the trailer I will admit that I was charmed by. So like, I'm curious. It might be fun. I don't know. I didn't like Captain Marvel very much at all. So this can't be worse than that in my mind. But you never know. But after that, like, I don't know what the fucking next movie is. Everything we're hearing about Deadpool 3 makes it sound fucking like I want to blow my brains out. The idea that the Secret Wars is just going to be all those... We've been seeing all these memes joking about what Avengers Secret War will be. And it's just like... It just looks like Kingdom Hearts, but full of like characters from the Marvel movies or whatever. And it looks fucking bad. Like, all these memes are jokes. It's like, you know, here's Hugh Jackman, here's Tobey Maguire, here's, you know, Ben Affleck, Daredevil or whatever. And everyone laughs at it. But I'm like, no, I think that's what the movie is going to end up being. I think they're just going to do that. I don't think this is like a funny thing. This is like, they're just going to do the fucking... It's going to be a Boss Logic movie, basically. It's just going to be like fandom, AI art. Here's Hugh Jackman, here's Tobey Maguire, here's all the different people that we can bring back. Fuck, here's a hologram of Lou Ferrigno. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be fucking... It has the potential to be very bad. The other thing is, we still don't have a director for it, which is crazy, because like, that's a big deal. They already announced Daniel Destin Cretton to do the King Dynasty half of the movie, but they don't have someone to do the other one. He can't do both because they're going to have to, like, the productions will not line up, I don't believe, the way they're planning to do it. So it has to be another director, and it's got to be someone that's done a Marvel movie already. I don't think the Russos are coming back. I hope not. They suck. But for a little bit, it sounded like they were trying to get Sam Raimi, but I think I just heard that Sam Raimi is signing on to do some horror movie with Sandra Bullock. Not When the Hero, but it's like a movie with her or something. That would probably preclude him from being able to do this. So it's like, who the fuck else? Like, Nia DaCosta is clearly not coming back. I imagine they could just get someone from the shows, since Matt Shakman, whatever, the guy that's directing the Fantastic Four, he came from WandaVision. You know what I mean? So maybe one of the directors from the TV will do it. Maybe Benson and Moorhead, who worked on Moon Knight and are now going to come work on Daredevil. They're two guys who work together who started out making low budget movies just like the Russos. Maybe it's their turn. For their sake, I kind of hope not, but I don't know. It's just... It's so over. Like, we've been saying, like, me and my friends have been saying that it's so over about the MCU like all year, but like, it has never been more over. It is so fucking over. And I'm going to be honest, the real reason I did enjoy reading this article so much was that I saw that goddamn motherfucking prick, one of the Russos, I don't know, I can't tell them apart, had a picture, like a TikTok with his dog. And, you know, Martin Scorsese has a dog named Oscar, and I don't think he named it after having an Oscar, but whatever. He has a dog named Oscar. And the Russo brother was like, oh, that's really cute, a dog named Oscar. And he says hi to his dog. It's like, oh, come on, let's go box office. Like, haha, I don't have an Oscar, but I made more money. And it's like, yeah, you have directed movies that have made considerably more money than Martin Scorsese's movies have made. But if you take away the 3 Marvel movies you made, the only movies that you guys have made were like Welcome to Collinwood, which I'm pretty sure lost everybody involved money, and You, Me, and Dupree, which I think I paid to see in theaters and I still want my money back. Cherry, a fucking joke. Fucking The Gray Man, a fucking joke. Like, these guys are just... People try to say he was just being playful and tongue-in-cheek, but the vibe did not feel playful and tongue-in-cheek. The vibe felt like, you're really hurt that Marty doesn't like these movies. You should just be more like Zack Snyder. You know, Jon Favreau, lots of normal people have responded to his criticisms and not been like, he doesn't understand. You know, like Scott Derrickson acted like a little bitch about it. Fucking James Gunn acted like a little bitch about it. Like, everyone has this like chip on their shoulder that's like, no, superheroes they're real, they really count. And it's like, dude, you're an adult fucking man. I like superheroes too, but like, just stop being a fucking weirdo. Stop like your life depends on this one fucking man not liking you. And it's not even Martin Scorsese doesn't like these people or something. He's literally just said he saw some of these movies, they weren't for him. He fundamentally disagrees with their proliferation in the industry. It's not complicated. But every other day, someone's going to come out and be like, you're going to tell me you watched Spider-Man No Way Home and you didn't think that was cinema that didn't move you? Like, it looked like a fucking Mitsubishi commercial. No, it didn't fucking move me. You know, but, I don't know. I don't want to be the kind of like bitter, cynical person who's just like laughing at this misfortune, because like ultimately I don't want anyone to fail necessarily. Like I want people to work and make money and tell the stories they want to tell and all those different things. I just would like to see this shit go away. And maybe we could just go back to having some superhero movies sometimes. And then maybe the people that made those ones didn't have to make them line up with 20 other fucking movies and do millions of reshoots and stuff. And like, maybe they could just be good again. I don't know. Maybe they could just be good and not whatever the fuck they've become. That's where I'm at with the whole thing. Yeah. So that's the news. I don't know what the fuck Marvel's going to do, but I guess we'll all find out, won't we? What else? Okay, let's see what else I got to talk about here. Scroll through my little notes. But what I watched. We'll talk about what I watched. Sorry. So I watched like 10 movies this week-ish. So the whole thing is I had to finish Hooptober. You know, this is like the 4th or 5th episode we're talking about Hooptober. I had originally, as I said a few episodes ago, I had a 31 movie list for Hooptober. And about 5 or 10 movies into it, I just started going off the list and adding a bunch of random shit. Like I watched the whole Friday the 13th franchise, whatever. So I do this every year. I add a bunch of stuff because I think I'm doing so well. I'm going so above and beyond one movie a day that I have time for extra credit fun stuff. But then I get to watch too much extra credit fun stuff, and then I forget about all the movies that I originally put on my list, and then the month starts moving fast. Like these last 2 weeks, I didn't watch quite as many things. I was a little burnt out. I shouldn't say burnt out because it makes me sound like I was tired from watching movies, which I'm not. It's more just like I had more days where I didn't feel like watching anything or paying attention to anything that wasn't like TikTok or like Discord or, you know, whatever, or YouTube or something, just basic little shit or whatever. But I rejiggered my list, which I had originally let balloon to like 63 or 64 movies or something. I whittled it back down to 55. So at the end of Halloween, I'd seen 55 total horror movies for all of October. And I only kept the original movies necessary to still fulfill the Hooptober rules. So there were some movies I totally would have cut out and decided not to watch anymore, but I needed them to fulfill the rules. So I also got rid of some movies that didn't fit the rules, but I wanted to see. I just put them on my regular watch list. I'll watch them later. But the last few movies I did were, I'm going to talk about these kind of out of order. So I did Dracula, the original Bela Lugosi, not original, but like the Bela Lugosi, Todd Browning Dracula, which I'd never seen before ever in my life. And I was very impressed by it. I thought it had a lot of really cool mood and tone. I thought Bela Lugosi's Dracula was like really cool. I thought the guy playing Van Helsing was really good. I feel like the first, I don't know, 15 minutes of that movie are like perfect. And I think that the last 10 are pretty good. And then a lot of stuff in the middle, I kind of got bored during. But the opening there's such good texture and like mood. And it's just so kind of creepy and unsettling. It was really the atmosphere for that movie was really incredible. And then I followed it up with Dracula 3000, which is a movie starring Casper Van Dien from Starship Troopers and the Omega Code, and Coolio and Tiny Lister Jr., Debo from Friday, Zeus, you know, and I don't remember the other actors' names. They were just random people, I guess. But the plot of Dracula 3000 is just the plot of Jason X, but with Dracula. So it's a Casper Van Dien is like a descendant of Van Helsing, and they run like a salvage ship, and they go to this abandoned ship, and it's called the Demeter. It's like the Demeter from, you know, the last voyage of the Demeter from Bram Stoker's Dracula. But Udo Kier is the captain, so like the whole movie is interspersed with Udo, his like captain's logs. Having seen The Last Voyage of the Demeter this year, I thought this was really funny that there's like just a shitty space version of it, kind of, but you don't see all the stuff that happens in the ship. You just have Udo's vlogs, essentially, that he filmed. So like he got to get paid to record a handful of vlogs and leave. He brings a lot of character to the movie, but it's, you know, they get to the ship, and obviously it's like a 100-year-old ship or something in space, and Dracula's still on board, and like you don't see Dracula for like a while. He's only in the movie for like 10 or 15 minutes, and it's a very forgettable interpretation of Dracula. But what makes the movie is like that Coolio is sort of, he's like this like a pothead, and he's sort of like the Renfield character in the movie a bit, and it just, if you've never seen Dracula 3000, you should see it. It's a treat. It's it's not like a good movie. It's not even like such a bad movie that you have to see it. It's more that like it feels so much like a Skinamax movie, kind of. It has the look of like, you know, Emmanuel in space or something, or maybe like a you know, like an Andromeda, or I don't know, I think I know a little bit too much about Skinamax movies, but it fits that milieu, I will say. And Casper Van Dien's like fine or whatever, like he's in it, but like Coolio has like so much dialogue in this movie. I just thought a lot of times they throw a rapper in a movie in the 90s or early 2000s, and like they have a few lines and they do a little bit, but Coolio's like all over this fucking movie. I was like, there's so much Coolio in this movie, it's insane. But I guess I'll just give it away because who cares. But the last few minutes of the movie to me are insane, because throughout the movie, Debo's character is just like super horny, and he just keeps trying to flirt with the other women in the crew, and like they don't want anything to do with it, and he's just like, damn, I'm never gonna get laid. And about an hour into the movie, they reveal that this one member of the crew, who's just kind of like a hothead and very by the book and always talking about the rules, you find out that she's actually a robot, like a cyborg or an android or whatever, and that she's like a cop bot. Basically, she's like undercover to make sure that the salvage crew isn't doing like dirt or something. And she reveals that, and it's just like, oh, so you're a fucking robot or whatever, and it's like a weird thing. But then like the movie goes in a weird direction in the final act, and like the ship is going to explode, like they're going to die. Then Helsing dies, so it just gets down to being Debo and the cop robot, and she just turns to him and is basically like, you know, I wasn't always a cop robot. I actually used to be like a hooker bot that turned into a cop robot. So technically we've solved the case, so I'm off the clock. And he's like, oh, so like, yeah. And she's like, yeah, let's go do it. And it's like, oh, he's like, well, we're gonna die, but I'm gonna get some ass first from this robot. And they go to fuck, and then the fucking ship blows up. And something about it was like, there's a lot of ways you could have ended this movie or any movie, but I did not see that being the ending of the movie. So when it happened, I just like cackled, like I couldn't breathe. I was like, okay, all of my other misgivings about Dracula 3000 are out the window, because that is how you end a movie. That is how you end a motion picture. The next day, I watched The Last Man on Earth with Vincent Price, which is based on Richard Matheson's novel I Am Legend, which was the basis for the movie I Am Legend with Will Smith, and also The Omega Man with Charlton Heston, and like other stuff. It's a very influential piece of speculative fiction or whatever. And Vincent Price is the last man on Earth, and I thought the movie was gonna be very hokey and cheesy because Vincent Price is in it or whatever, but it's like actually like very dark and very really good atmosphere and mood and stuff. It's just this fucking dude who lives by himself, and like during the day he just goes around fucking murdering these zombie vampires, and at night he hides from them and stuff. But I feel like this movie, there's this huge middle section that just is a flashback to how the plague started and all this different stuff, and it's very boring. It's like I don't care. Maybe in 1964 they had to get that across, but like I didn't care. And the ending is much closer to what the actual ending of the book is, like the sense that like in the future, where all this like these people are like the next evolution necessary sort of, and like this one last guy that's killing them all, he's like their monster. He just shows up and murders them all every day. And once they get him out of the picture, now they can just take over, rebuild the world without him. And I feel like I Am Legend didn't really get that right, even in like the alternate ending that they didn't release or whatever, the deleted scene ending. So I thought it was cool. It worked, But this is one of those movies that I needed on my list. I couldn't delete it because it fit one of the requirements. Then I watched Hausu, the Japanese horror film, which I've somehow never seen. And I don't actually have a lot to say about it, or anything to really say about it, but it was really cool. I really liked it. I thought it had again, this is something I went into assuming and thinking that it was going to be like campy, and it's kind of campy, I guess, but I thought it was one of those movies that everyone likes because it's so ridiculous and bad, but it's not. It's like a pretty fucking good movie. It has like a lot of very interesting storytelling techniques and a really cool style and just a really interesting way of getting information across, and I was really enamored by it, actually. I didn't really follow the story very well, but I liked what was happening on screen. Like, I liked the way it looked and felt and stuff. Pretty cool movie. I feel like I'd have to see it again. I'd really like to see it like on the big screen, to be entirely honest, but that was nice. And then I had to watch Rawhead Rex, which is a movie. I think it's like an Irish film, and it's based on a Clive Barker story. He wrote it, and it's just about this like monster that comes back, and there's priests. I couldn't tell you the plot at all because it did not move me. But the monster just looks like Harry from Harry and the Hendersons, but like if he was like Bane, like if he was on that Venom shit and was just yoked, and every 10 minutes or so he just shows up and starts killing people. And the rest of the movie is very boring and very kind of placid. But every time Rex shows up and starts wrecking shit, the camera gets all crazy and handheld and like has this very strong like Sam Raimi Evil Dead feel and the kineticism. And I was like, if this movie was just him killing people, this movie would be pretty sick. But there's whole other passages where I'm like, when is Rex going to come back and fucking kill someone? So I would not recommend that movie to my worst enemy, to be entirely honest. I was not a fan. And then I ended my Hooptober with a movie called Amsterdamned, which I'll talk about in a second. I'm going to double back a little bit here. We're going to kind of Tarantino this. I actually started the week watching Five Nights at Freddy's, which is like technically a horror movie, so I put it on my list. And then I went out to Baltimore. My friend Rob, the Truth in This Art podcast, was hosting a screening of The Blackening at Baltimore Improv Group, and he and I did like a cool discussion afterwards and stuff, like a little live Q&A thing about the movie. And I saw The Blackening earlier in the year. I reviewed it. I mostly liked it. This is my second time watching it. It holds up pretty well. I think it's smart. I think it's clever. I like a lot of the ideas in it. I don't think it's quite funny enough to be recommended as a really good comedy, and I also don't think it's anywhere near scary enough or interesting enough as a horror film to recommend as a good horror movie. It's kind of in this weird middle space where like I wish someone who wasn't Tim Story directed it so the horror parts of it would be more interesting. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of good stuff in it. It's something I definitely recommend to watch, but like it doesn't make me laugh a lot, and it didn't really spook me, but it was like interesting. There are a lot of jokes that made me smile is the best way I can describe it, where you're like, oh, I like this. Or, sometimes you watch a show and there's a bit and you go, that was funny, but you don't laugh. Like you have like this acknowledgement of it. Like, I like that. That tickled a part of my brain, but I'm not going to laugh. That's kind of The Blackening, if that makes sense. But I enjoyed it. Even the second time, I was like, this holds up mostly okay. So before I talk about Amsterdamned, which is how I ended my Halloween, how I ended my Hooptober, and I was very happy about that. I want to talk a little bit about Five Nights at Freddy's, a movie that I could not have had less fucking interested watching, but I had a very strong sort of morbid curiosity about it. Five Nights at Freddy's made like $75 million or something opening weekend domestic here, and it was available to stream on Peacock. So that's an absurd amount of money for a day and date release, okay? That's fucking crazy. It broke a bunch of horror movie records. It broke a bunch of Halloween weekend records. It broke a bunch of records for video game movies. I think it had like the highest opening day gross of any video game movie ever. And I was like, how did it make more money than Mario? But Mario was released on a Wednesday, and this was released on a Friday. This made like $37 or $39 million on Friday, and then Mario made like $31 million on Wednesday. If Mario had come out on a Friday, it would have made more money, but on that one day anyway. So I've never played any of the Five Nights at Freddy's games. I'm not much of a gamer at all anyway, but I certainly never played these. And the only thing I was aware of the games is that they have a lot of lore. People are always talking about the lore about Five Nights at Freddy's. There's all this lore. And in our group chat, my friend Justin had sent us like a screenshot of a YouTube thumbnail. And it was like a video explaining all of the Five Nights at Freddy's lore, and it was like 8 hours long. And I was just like, I'd rather fucking shoot myself. So I watched the movie kind of blind, and Matthew Lillard's in it. He's pretty good. I like Matthew Lillard. Josh Hutcherson trying to have a bit of a comeback. Don't know what the fuck he's really doing in this movie, but he's trying, I guess. I just thought the movie had so much going on for like no reason. And then I looked up stuff from the games to see if some of this there's a reason for it. And a lot of the stuff that I thought was extraneous in the movie was like not from the games. It was like added for the movie. And I guess the creator of the games helped write the movie. So I just thought that was like, he just has new material he wants to, there's a bunch of these games. Why are you making up new stuff? But it's like Josh Hutcherson is like he has to be like an overnight security guard for this place that used to be like Chuck E. Cheese essentially. But then he finds out that a bunch of kids were murdered and went missing from it. And then you find out that those kids are like possessing the animatronic machines. They're killing people. They don't know what happened to them. And the guy that is responsible for killing them is like manipulating and using them and stuff. But then he also has like a little sister. And then when he was young, his little brother was kidnapped. And his parent, he has to raise his little sister. And like also his aunt is trying to take custody of his little sister. So he's like trying to fight her. There's all this complicated shit. And I'm like, when am I going to see a fucking giant animatronic thing kill someone? Like, why is it? I foolishly assumed that Five Nights at Freddy's was about a bunch of Chuck E. Cheese-esque robots that kill people. I thought that was very straightforward. And it's like, no, actually, there's all this other stuff. And then I went through like the Wikipedia a little bit and just clicked on a couple of little explainer articles. And the thing that is wrong with Five Nights at Freddy's to me, there's two things actually. One thing is that it's just too hat in a hat. There's just too much shit. And it reminded me a little bit of like The Black Phone, which is a movie that I quite liked, to be honest. Probably my favorite thing that Scott Derrickson's done actually. But when you watch The Black Phone, the conceit is like this boy is kidnapped and there is a phone in the basement where the child murderer is holding him, and the other children who've been murdered previously, their spirits can talk to him through the phone and try to help him to not get killed like them. It's based on like a Joe Hill short story, I think Stephen King's son. That's a great premise and it's really cool. But also the little boy's sister has like psychic dreams. So she sees like her dreams help the people figure out where he's being held. And I remember thinking, why is it both? Fucking pick one. Why is it the dead kid phone and then his psychics? It's too many things. It's just, it doesn't make sense. It's hat in a hat. And I felt that way about Five Nights at Freddy's, where I was like, why is he trying to solve? It's like he has to solve the missing brother thing and then protect his new sister. But then there's these monsters and there's this job. And then like a fucking cop lady shows up and she's like the most I've ever hated a character in something. Like she just popped up and I was like, she's so fucking annoying. What is going on? And it's just periodic info dumps. Like the way they reveal information is not very interesting. I think that the way information is revealed in something that's mysterious is like very important. This year when I saw When Evil Lurks, I really liked the way they like breadcrumb out information throughout the story and make you kind of put it together and figure it out. It's a very good trickle of exposition and stuff. And the way they introduce ideas is really cool. Watching this, it's just like, and it's just a bunch. I wish I had bookmarked this tweet, but I saw someone say that like, this is the difference between lore and telling a story. Because telling a story is like some things happen and like the characters move through this arc and things occur and things change. And then lore is just like a list of stuff that happened in the past. And when you're making a video game or something, you can have all those interesting ideas and people can find out things and these Easter eggs and stuff. But in a story, it's just like everything interesting that happens in Five Nights at Freddy's happened before the movie starts. If you just take it based on the movie starting and ending, this dude needs a job because he has anger issues. He's sensitive to the idea that kids being kidnapped. Then he ends up working at this place that is haunted by these machines. And then he fights them. And then that is it. And it takes 2 hours. This is like an 85-minute movie idea. That's like literally 2 hours. And all of the stuff in it is just referencing shit that he finds out later from the past. And I don't think it works at all. Now, I mean, it doesn't matter that I think that because it made a bunch of money. It wasn't very expensive to produce. Kids fucking love this shit. My theater played it and I saw so many kids who were just like fucking losing their shit. And I was like, oh, okay, well, this just isn't for me. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's cool that I'm not the target audience. I'm glad it has a target audience and I'm glad it did well. Probably gonna make a lot of sequels, but I just don't know how you can make them good, because it's fundamentally just a list of stuff, you know? I think I said in my Letterboxd review that it's like, this is the most I've ever understood what it's like to go see a superhero movie and you don't like superhero comics or you've never read them, because there's so many things those movies do for nerds. It's just like, hey, you know who that is? You know what that means? You know who that's going to be in the next one? Did you see this? And like, if you didn't grow up reading comics, you're like, what the fuck is that? Who's that? Why do I care? What's the guy doing with the glove? You know? And Five Nights at Freddy's had me feel like that, where I was like, I don't know what the fuck any of this shit is. And I don't care. It's not like like a thing where I'm like, I got to go find this out. And like, I literally started reading an article explaining the stuff. And I was like, no, you know what? This is just not for me. That's okay. Like, this just doesn't matter. I'm not the guy for this. And that's okay. It was kind of freeing in a way, actually. When I was younger, I used to be so afraid of like getting old and out of touch, not understanding stuff. But like, as I get older, sometimes it feels really good to just be able to go, nope, no idea what that is. That is for other people. That's okay. They make stuff for me. I'm happy. I'm not mad. Like, I still have stuff that I like, you know, I'm not fucked. But I just have to accept when something is not for my demographic. But anyway, that all builds up to Amsterdamned, which is the last horror movie I watched of the month. It's a movie directed by a guy named Dick Maas, or Dick Maas. I don't know how to pronounce it. He's Dutch. My friend Cody suggested me to watch it. Cody has brought a great many movies into my life. If it wasn't for Cody, we would not all have Dogface, a Trap House Horror. Cody's got unique taste, I will say. I love him to death, but sometimes he tells me to watch something and I'm like, what are you going to do? What is this? What are we doing? But he told me I should watch Amsterdam. He said it was really good. I saw the poster, and the poster is like sick. But I was like, I don't know. I just assumed it was going to be like a goofy, crazy thing. But I really liked it. It's like a good ass movie. Amsterdamned is like essentially like a Dutch giallo. Like, it has the trappings of a giallo, but minus Italy and minus like the music in this is cool, but it's not like giallo music. And there's like a guy in a scuba suit murdering people in Amsterdam. And it's like this movie's version of the Black Glove POV stuff from like, you know, a giallo movie. And then there's a detective who has to try to solve it. And then like the detective has this like precocious, kind of wisecracking like teen daughter. And they have a lot of funny dialogue and stuff. And like, he's a really good detective, but he just looks like a quintessential like 80s guy. Like, he looks like he could have been like the third guy in Wham, or like a bass player for like, I don't know, like Wang Chung or something. He's extremely 80s. This movie's a 1989 film. He's just super 80s. And I didn't know much about Amsterdam, honestly. I'm not cultured. But I didn't know that much of Amsterdam is there's all this water everywhere. There's like people just boat all over the fucking place. There's water throughout the city and stuff. And the movie is very much about how this killer is like popping out of the water to kill people and then going back into it so he can't be traced. And then like they show that he has like a rival detective that he used to be friends with, but he stole that guy's girl, and then him and that girl had a baby, and the girl ran off with another guy. So now he's like a single parent, and he meets the guy and he's like, you know, I'm sorry that I stole your girl. And he's like, it's cool, don't ever do it again, but we're still boys. So they decide to work together on the case, and there's like it becomes kind of like a buddy cop movie sort of. And there's all this stuff with his daughter, and she's really funny. And then like the actual murders are pretty fucked up. The mystery is pretty well done. And then all of a sudden the cop starts having like this like romance with this girl he meets, because they assume it has to be someone who does scuba shit. So they go into the scuba world or whatever, the diver world, and he meets this like hot chick, and they start kind of hitting it off. But she has like this guy that he thinks is her guy, but it's really just her therapist. And you're like 99.99% sure the therapist is the killer, because like he just looks like he probably is. I won't give away the ending because it's actually really shitty. It's a fucking horrible ending, actually. But I will say that Amsterdam was very important for me in the sense that it's the most I've hated an ending and still liked the movie. I'm a huge proponent of telling people that like, if you have a decent movie or mediocre movie or maybe even kind of a bad one, but your last 5 to 10 minutes is great, I will ignore so much else about the movie. I think a good ending really makes up for a lot. And sometimes a really good movie can have a really bad ending and it ruins everything. This ending is horrible, but I didn't care because the movie's so good otherwise, or at least it was to me. And I think the reason I didn't care about the ending being bad is that like every giallo or giallo adjacent horror, slasher, thriller, murder mystery movie that I see, they all have bad endings. Like, they all have really bad killer reveals, where when they show you who the killer is, you're like, who the fuck is that? who is even that? And then they're like, remember the butler's sister that you saw for 1 second? That's her dad, or whatever. And they're just like, huh? Every movie like that I see always has a stupid fucking reveal. And they always have to explain it to you in exacting detail because they know you don't remember who it is. They know you don't know what's going on. And there's always something that's like, there's always been a red herring that they never explain that away. So you're like, okay, well, if this is the killer, then what was that guy up to? Because if he's not the killer, that doesn't make any sense. So in a way, the ending being terrible is just like genre appropriate. I think it would have been weird if it actually had a good ending. So I'm going to give it a pass for the terrible ending. It's very fucking stupid, extremely laughable. But in the middle of this movie, there's a fucking high-speed boat chase. Sometimes when you watch a movie, or you watch lots of movies like I do, or like many of us do, you go into a movie, and even if you don't know exactly what's going to happen, you know the lay of the land of what could happen. Like, if I'm watching a romantic comedy or something, I know that there's not going to be like a random fight scene. Like, there might be violence, maybe the guy gets beat up by like a bully or something, but like, I know in the middle of a Meg Ryan movie that no one's going to do Krav Maga. That's basically safe, you know? But sometimes you watch a movie and you're like, I didn't know this was that kind of movie. Like, you watch a movie and then you're like, this is not a movie I thought that was going to happen in. It doesn't have to be anything drastic or crazy. It's just like, it just didn't occur to me that there was going to be a high-speed boat chase in this movie. And it's actually really fucking good. It's like really thrilling. It's like the French Connection, you know, To Live and Die in LA, Ronin of boat chases, basically. And I fucking loved it. I was like so into this movie, man. Amsterdam's on Shudder right now, I think. I know horror movie month is over, but we watch horror movies all year round. Who cares? I definitely implore you to check out Amsterdam. I think you'll really like it. Really well done, like really well made. It's very charming and like clever, and dialogue's pretty funny for the most part. Like, yeah, just really fucking good movie. Definitely check that out. So I finished Hooptober. Those are my horror movies. So I went to 3 press screenings this week. I'm not going to get too deep in the movies, obviously, because I still have to review them and stuff, and I don't want to like just give it all away here quite. But Wednesday morning, I saw Ferrari, the new Michael Mann film, which I really liked. I can at least say that. I was very impressed by it. It was not at all what I was expecting. I kind of went into it thinking it was going to be more like The Insider or Ali, like sort of like Mann's 2 most like regular people movies. And also one of them's they're both biopics kind of, or they're based on true stories, let's say. So I thought it'd be like that, but it's not like that. It's kind of a lot of things. I don't want to get too deep into it, but I really fucking liked it. I think Adam Driver is amazing in it. I think if Lily Gladstone's performance in Killers of the Flower Moon didn't exist, Penelope Cruz would be like a shoo-in for like Best Actress. Like, she's so good in this movie. Eric Messerschmidt's cinematography is really good. It's like a very different version of the digital stuff that Mann does. I think some of that is just the fact that now he's using like better cameras. I think that's a big thing about the way Mann would do digital in like the early 2000s and stuff, was just that those cameras were like shit. You know what I mean? Like, compared to the cameras we have now. So in some ways it's better because there's just nicer, newer, better sensors. And that the movie's style feels a little bit more traditional, I suppose, but it's still like digital. It's not like he suddenly tried to move away or hide from it or anything. It's just different. The performances are all really good. Everything about it is just very emotional. It's the way it deals with like man stuff. I really want to talk about that a lot more in my review. Like, it's a movie. Michael Mann makes the best movies about men. Is kind of the best thing I can really say about it. Like, I don't know if anyone else gets it. Because there's moments in the movie that are like very complex and difficult and raw and vulnerable in a way that not a lot of people can depict men in this kind of correct light. But then there's other moments that are just like super dudes rock moments. There's one moment in particular that actually the final version of the trailer for the movie uses pieces from this speech. It's a scene where Ferrari is like digging into his drivers about how they're not like cutthroat enough on the racetrack. And It's like such a good speech. It's such a Michael Mann scene, and Driver just makes a meal out of it. And there's this moment he's basically talking about, like, in the trailer you kind of see it. He's essentially saying, like, in a race, there's going to be a moment where two people occupy the same space and they can't, and something's going to have to happen. Someone's going to have to bump someone or whatever. And the trailer does a really good job of juxtaposing this with the fact that the central issue of his life at this point in the story is that he's married to one woman, and then he's secretly living with his mistress and their child, and the other, like, these two people can occupy the same space. It's an interesting way to frame the trailer. It's smart, but in the context of the movie, it's more specifically about the race itself. It's very literal, and he's explaining how, like, when you get to this moment, all of my drivers are very smart and, like, erudite people, and they're going to think, like, what would the French think if they see me roll this guy, off the track? What would they think if I would look like a barbarian? Like, they were, they get in their head about how violent the sport can be, and that prevents them from having a killer instinct. And he's like, meanwhile, these other drivers, they get on that hairpin turn, they get in that moment, they look and they say, fuck it, we both die. And he's basically telling them, like, that's the energy you have to win. And when he delivers the fuck it, we both die line, I got, like, chills. I was just like, the only way I could compare it to, actually, this isn't a Michael Mann thing, it's Oliver Stone's Any Given Sunday, Al Pacino's Inches speech, when he's like, it's a game of inches, football. When you watch that scene, when it's over, you're ready to go hit the field. Like, I am extremely unathletic at this point in my life, but whenever I see or watch the Inches scene on YouTube, I am ready to go, like, run a play or something. I'm ready to just, like, fucking run through a brick wall. So in Ferrari, when he had that line about fuck it, we both die, I was just like, yeah, I was ready to go do something. I didn't do anything, but I watched the rest of the movie, but good movie. We'll talk about that more when I review it and stuff. But then today I went and saw Dream Scenario, actually, the new Nicolas Cage movie. I cannot remember the director's name. I meant to watch his last film the other night, but I just wasn't in the mood. Dream Scenario, kind of Kaufman-esque, very Charlie Kaufman-esque, really good Nicolas Cage performance, pretty good movie. I have some issues with it. I think that video will probably be out next week, so I won't spoil all that, but good movie. I would recommend it, but I have some thoughts. And then just a few hours ago, I saw David Fincher's The Killer, and I'm actually reviewing this for Looper, so there's not going to be like a video about it, but it is such a banger. Surprising no one. It's a real fucking slapper, and it in some ways feels like the most Steven Soderbergh a Fincher movie has ever been, I can say. And it makes so much sense to me now why Soderbergh said he loved it so much, because it very much feels like all of his personal preoccupations. It's Fincher's too. Like, they have some overlap as storytellers, but it's probably why they're friends. But so much of the movie feels like something some of the touchstones, or some of the common inspirations, I think, between the two of them is like Jean-Pierre Melville is obviously like an influence in the film, but I think it's also kind of inspired by Point Blank, the Lee Marvin movie, and I know that was a huge influence on Soderbergh. Like, it strongly informs The Limey, so you can kind of see a little bit of that connection maybe. And then there's also just the way Soderbergh is so good at telling stories about, like, what I would say, it's like the intersection of, like, commerce and just like humanity, right? Like, so many of his stories are about, like, people and how living in capitalism affects their lives. He famously said, like, he doesn't understand superhero movies because he doesn't know how they pay their bills. He's like, I don't know who pays them. How do they get paid? Like, that is sort of his entry point into the human experience, is like labor in some ways. And Fincher, I don't think is the same, or I guess actually Fincher, in many ways is, like, very concerned with what people do and how they do it. Like, he's kind of a process guy, I think. And so is Soderbergh too, obviously, but, like, that's sort of the thing. So much of The Killer is, like, the process of being a contract killer and all this different stuff. And obviously it's sort of like a metaphor for Fincher's actual career. Like, Fassbender's voiceover narration explaining how he does things sounds like a director's commentary. There's a lot of cheeky shit like that in the movie, and the meticulous sort of clinical precision stuff that The Killer is like, that's how Fincher directs his movies. And look, it's definitely like a B movie. It's definitely kind of like low hanging fruit. It's not like, I don't think it's going to be part of the Oscar conversation or things like that, but it's really, really well made. It's really, really good. And I've already seen people talk about it sort of like, this is probably just going to be like a nice base hit. Like we like it, but it's not going to hold up on repeat viewings. And I don't think so. I think on repeat viewings, it's going to actually be even stronger, because it feels just the same way Fight Club felt like a real interesting snapshot of like 90s consumerism. This feels like a snapshot of like modern consumerism and like how things have changed, like the gig economy and all that shit. And it's really cool. It's sometimes people ask me what kind of movies I like, and sometimes I have to say there are things I like disproportionately to how other people like them. And I can comfortably say that Fincher's The Killer is like extremely my shit. It's like a movie made specifically for me. So I totally get if other people watch it and think it's like minor Fincher or slight or whatever. But like, I'm someone who really enjoys The Game, who really enjoyed Panic Room. And I've been kind of missing the idea of Fincher being a guy who like does fun pulp shit. So I'm glad he made this, even if it's like kind of a weird mea culpa for Mank, which I liked. I don't know why everybody else hated it, but I liked it a lot. So yeah, The Killer. I'm gonna review that for Looper. I don't think I'm gonna make like a video about it too. I don't like to double dip, but definitely see it. It hits Netflix on the 10th. I saw it at my friend's theater because they're playing it like for real, but I want to see it again. Preferably on a bigger screen, but that's not going to happen because the way Netflix releases these movies. So I'll watch it again at home once it hits, but it's definitely worth checking out. Okay, so that's what I watched. We have time for questions, but I think I only have one this week. Okay, question from my friend Luke. Luke asks, how do you think it would do if they spent the upcoming quiet movie year re-releasing all of the Mission Impossible films in theaters again, like one per month? This is interesting. This is, I think, a question from the episode where I talked about how Mission Impossible 8 is not going to be called Dead Reckoning Part 2, how they're going to have to move it to 2025 and all this crazy shit. And this is an interesting idea in the sense that would be kind of cool, right? Like it would allow people a bunch of time to like refamiliarize themselves with the franchise and like make it fresh again and stuff. But I don't think it would work. And here's why. In the before times, before COVID and stuff, re-releases for movies would kind of only work if it was like a really classic movie that everybody like has a connection to. And now there's something about it making it new again and making it feel like a historical event, like an anniversary, like a new remastering, or maybe someone passed away or something, or whatever. There's something that makes it like, this has to be an event. We are all going to collectively go back and watch X movie, And when theaters first reopened in 2020, there was no new product. A lot of theaters had to play a lot of rep stuff. And none of them were doing like fun, interesting rep stuff the way like small rep houses do or like artsy places. They were just doing like whatever the studio was kind of pushing on them. Like, hey, we're going to release this or that. And what I've discovered, having played some of them in my own theater, is like, unless there is that sort of like event feeling, that kind of cultural force pressing against the re-release, people do not give a shit. So like, when they replayed Avatar, it was like, like the anniversary of Avatar, there was like the new 4K version, all this different stuff. That was sort of to prime the pump for Avatar Way of Water. And it did pretty well. And people liked it. People hadn't seen it in a long time. And now they were seeing it looking better than ever, et cetera, et cetera. That's one thing. But, or like the Star Wars releases when I was like a kid, stuff like that. But the problem is like, if you were to do the entire Mission Impossible franchise, it's like 7 fucking movies. And of varying quality to a lot of people, and as a bunch of the big stars Tom Cruise is, it would dilute it. There would be no way to make that a sustained thing where people would care. Like maybe parts of it would work if it was like you rewatch like the Burj Khalifa sequence in IMAX, stuff like that. Some of the specific sequences people want to see, but all those movies over again, I don't think it would work. And theaters around here are still doing all these random re-releases during slow periods, and they don't connect. We did one for Hocus Pocus. People did not really fucking come, you know what I mean? Because it's just like, it's on fucking TV. Like, you have to make it feel special. You have to make it special again. And now that a lot of people have nice TVs and shit at home and nice projectors, I just saw a video for a projector that has Dolby Vision enabled. Like, you can hook it up to your Apple TV and like it'll have like really crisp, really beautiful, you know, contrast ratios and shit, whatever. It looked really gorgeous. People are less likely to go to the theater unless it's something that they have to go to the theater for. So I don't think it would actually work. And I mean, it's kind of a bummer because there's definitely a lot of stuff where I think really re-releasing something would be good to even set up a new release, like bringing something back before the sequel comes out and stuff like that. I think it can be good, but to get people to go to the movies to see a movie now, you have to spend so much money to have a piece of their attention, to get their attention and say, you have to do this. It's an uphill battle. It's why every movie has these exorbitant marketing budgets, because you have to spend that much money to get a sliver of someone's attention and time to see your thing and go, I want that. It's so much harder than it used to be. I feel like people used to just go to the theater and let's see what's playing and just go and watch something. And there are people that are still like this, obviously. Like, I have people come up and they're like, I don't even know what's playing. I kind of want to watch a movie. But it's so much less than it used to be. It used to be people just come, like, I always come on this day of the week. I leave work early, I come see a movie. What do you got? So much less of that. People now need to be convinced. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be horny, but like it's definitely more like there needs to be more foreplay to get people to see stuff nowadays. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like that first year of marriage, you're just ready to go. It's like, no, we gotta ease into this. And it's a lot of commitment. So yeah, that's what I think. Great question, Luke. Thank you. Okay, that's the episode, I guess. Thank you guys for listening. If you are watching this on YouTube, and you liked it, please give it a like, a little thumbs up. And if you loved it, please subscribe, hit the little bell icon so you get notifications whenever I put out new videos. I had the screenings this week. I have some screenings next week too. So we are going to have some new reviews on the channel very soon. You'll be the first person to see when those drop. You don't want to be late to that, do you? If you have any questions just about the episode or questions for future episodes, you can put those in the comments below. Love talking to you all. And if you don't want to do it there, you can hit me up on Twitter and Instagram. You can email me at armchairauteur@gmail.com. And yeah, that's that. And then if you're listening to this not on YouTube, if you're listening to this on whatever other podcast platform you prefer, please follow me on there or subscribe to me or give me a little rating, a little review or something. Share it with your friends. Get the word out. Don't gatekeep me. Yeah, so thank you guys again for listening and engaging and all that stuff and supporting me. It means the world to me. I appreciate you all. So yeah, I'm gonna go. We'll talk soon.